Hi and welcome to our YouTube channel. Today we're going to do mittens on a needle size 4. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want more free knitting patterns. We're going to cast on the stitches. In the top box you can see what the sizes is and how many stitches you need for each size. In the text to the video you can see the measurements of each size. We have cast on our stitches and we need to knit our rib edge. It is called 2 purl, 2 knit. Make sure your stitches is not twirled around your needles. When you're knitting on stocking needles or double pointed needles, it's always good to knit 2 stitches over to your 4th needle so you don't, before you use your 5th needle, so you don't get loose stitches between the joints of your needles. I recommend you do that on every needle you knit. We're going to knit the part that goes from your wrist to your thumb. See in the text box above how many rows you need to knit, and it's just a plain knit all the way around. We're going to make space for the thumb so we later on can knit the thumb. See in the text box above how many stitches you need to leave on a 6th needle or a kilt pin. We're going to cast on new stitches. See in the text box above how many stitches you need to cast on your needle. So the new stitches we have cast on, we need to knit into our knitting project. And we're actually going to have them above the stitches you are leaving on your needle. We have been knitting in our new stitches and we're going to jump over the stitches we need to leave on for a while. So you see we jumped over to the other pin and we're going to knit from there. Here you can better see how it works with the opening of the thumb. It is also a bit easier to see how the mitten is going to end up. So each mitten is going to be opposite of each other. You want to give an extra minute or two to make sure your thumb doesn't end up in the same direction, because then you just have two mittens for the same hand. I hope you spend a little time on making sure you are knitting a left and a right hand and not two right hands. We're gonna gather our stitches on the side so we can have a curvy edge over your fingers. We're gonna gather our stitches, but take a little time to make sure you are gathering the right stitches. We want our thumb to be on the side and not in the middle of the mitten. We're gathering 2 stitches on each side. This is how you do. You take the back stitch over the first stitch, and then again make sure that it's the right stitch. The next stitch you want to gather is on the other side, and you stitching 2 stitches and taking the back stitch over the first stitch. Now we gathered 2 stitches on one side. We need to do that on the other side as well. We need to do that for every second row, and we need to gather 6 rows. Mark all the stitches you have gathered so you know where you're at and you don't get confused when you knitted a couple of stitches. I normally use yarn, but I bought some needles, pinning needles, marking needles. I'm not particularly fond of those ones because I've cut it myself a couple of times with them. So in the future, we're going to do like a video of different kind of marking needles. We have gathered our stitches, 2 stitches on each side for 6 rows, or every second row, but 6 rows where we gathered. We're now gonna do our final part, which is gathering the final row. This is done a little different. Instead of taking the last stitch over the first one, we're just gonna knit in 2 stitches on our needle instead. We're gonna knit 2 stitches together, knit 1 stitch normal, and then knit 2 stitches together. We're done with gathering all our stitches, and the final stitches we're gonna sew together. So you break the yarn. I love my weaving needle. It's very long, so I can control it better. And I'm just gonna sew into the stitches and then pull off the needle. I'm gonna do that on all the stitches, and then I'm gonna sew it together in the end. So before we do the second mitten or the top of the second mitten, make sure you don't end up like this and do two left sides, but make a left and a right side. Just do an extra checkup before you do the second mitten. We're gonna knit our thumb, and this is the stitches we left for a while, and the other side is the stitches we cast on. On the stitches we cast on, there's two sides. There's an inside and there's an outside. On the outside, you're gonna cast on stitches on the outside loop here. So you're gonna begin with making a stitch on a loop from the side of the thumb. You're gonna do that for both sides. When you're done the first side, you're gonna knit into the stitches we left in the beginning. And then you're going to do a stitch on the other side of your thumb. Now we just need to cast on stitches from stitches. Make sure it's the outside loops and not the inside. So we need to have stitches from here, and then you cast on as many stitches as you cast on. So we made all our stitches from our thumb, and we're just gonna knit the rows for the thumb part. See in the text box above how many rows you need to knit. We're gonna finalize our thumb, and we're gonna gather every other stitch on 2 rows. Just like we did in the top of our mitten, we're gonna knit 2 stitches together, and then we're gonna knit 1 stitch, knit 2 stitches together again, and you do that all the way around your row, and do that for 2 rows. Here's the final part of our thumb. We're gonna break the yarn, and then just like we also did in the top, we're gonna sew in the yarn to the stitches with our weaving needle. Thank you for knitting with us. We will love to hear what kind of project you want to do next, so please leave a comment, and thank you for now.